So just to give you a quick introduction to the Bonsucro Impact Fund. Next slide. So the Bonsucro Impact Fund supports projects that address critical sustainability challenges in the sugarcane sector. Our fund offers members the chance to apply for thematic grants for projects that catalyse sustainable sugarcane production. Next slide, please. Successful projects will catalyse or accelerate sustainable sugarcane production in line with the Bonsucro 2021 to 2026 strategy. And we're looking for projects that are collaborative, innovative, that demonstrate potential for scale, and projects that address selected cross-cutting themes, projects that also take place in one of our priority countries. Next slide, please. This infographic represents the current status of our portfolio, and you can see we've come a long way in 3.5 years. Established in 2022, the BIF has grown from strength to strength, and we're really excited now. We're starting to see results from the projects. The Bonsucro Impact Fund has funded projects across our 3 thematic focus: smallholders, human rights and decent work, and climate action and water stewardship. We have so far launched 8 calls for proposals and received more than 80 applications and funded 17 projects across 13 countries. We've allocated over £1.2 million in grants and mobilised 60% of the total funding mobilised through match funding. Next slide. Oh, thank you, Sarah. This slide gives you a flavour of the breadth and variety of the projects supported by the Bonsucro Impact Fund. We are continuously encouraging sharing and capturing learning as we go, and we're happy to be building our portfolio of grants, especially in this important theme of smallholders. Next slide, please. The grants awarded are funded via the investment from the Bonsucro Credit Trades. And we're lucky to have some global brands and traders that purchase credit trades to help support the fund. Bonsucro credits are an important approach for us to reward producers from certified mills and farms to drive impact through investment in the Bonsucro Impact Fund, and also to facilitate buy-in credits so that members can achieve their sustainable procurement targets. So let's talk specifically about the call for proposal that has been launched back in October. Next slide, please. So the call for proposal is called Innovating for Inclusive and Resilient Value Chains for Smallholder Farmers in the Sugarcane Sector. The deadline is the 2nd of December, and we have 2 types of grants available. We have one grant of up to £100,000, which is an impact grant, which is for a longer duration of up to 3 years. This grant should be demonstrating tangible results and impact for sugarcane communities, whilst also Sarah, there's the toolbars come up on the slide. That's better. Demonstrating tangible results and impact for sugarcane communities, whilst also enhancing knowledge and learning for the sector. We also have 2 innovation grants up to £50,000 for a duration of 12 to 18 months. These are for pilot projects that test and validate innovative approaches, tools, and collaborations that improve smallholder farmer production in sugarcane and milling. The expected impact that we hope that these grants will bring about are an increased adoption of more sustainable farming practices by smallholder farmers, and innovations that incentivize and enable the adoption of sustainable agriculture practices by smallholder farmers to support their economic resilience. Now, to talk a little bit more in detail about the focus on smallholders, I'd like to pass over to Mike Ogg.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks, Sophie, for that. Yeah, it's good to see so many people here. I always find these webinars a little bit impersonal because you have to go through the attendee list to say hi to everyone. So those people I do know, hi. Those that I don't know, hopefully we'll be meeting someday. So yeah, I think this webinar and this call comes at a very opportune time in terms of where Bonsucro is. Smallholders are beginning to receive the focus that we need to put on them from a strategic point of view, but also just to ensure that that we leave no one behind. Right now, as I'm talking to you from the Kingdom of Eswatini, I'm sitting with a team from our Standards and Assurance team, and we're busy drafting the first draft of the new smallholder standard. I think a number of you would have been involved in the first round of consultations, and maybe I can punt the second round of consultations, which will be happening in February and March, around the standard. The standard is really in support of Bonsucro's strategy, and so the circle on the left there describes Bonsucro's strategy, and I think that for me this is about support growers and mills at different stages in their sustainability journey, along with convening the sector and promoting knowledge and innovation. So that's really the spirit of the fund, but also the spirit of this call. Sophie has put in the call for proposal some of the things that we would like to see, but I thought I'd just run through some of the thinking in terms of where we are, some of the feedback we've got from the first consultation in terms of the new standard, because obviously anything we learned from the projects would be useful, should promote people being able to use the standard. So I think the first thing that's coming out very strongly is smallholder is about groups and group formation. So what sort of innovations are there around forming groups and forming partnerships? One of the things that we've realized is certification is difficult. It needs to be done in partnership with someone. So groups and group formation and partnerships. I think the second thing that's coming out quite strongly is the cost of certification. And that is a fact, but how do we work smarter? How do we make sure that potentially thousands of smallholders with a high individual transaction costs around certification can be brought together, and how can we lower those costs? So some ideas around that. I think a big one that's coming out of our discussions is incentives and benefits. So what are the incentives and benefits that drive people down the journey of sustainability? And I know that in the past there have been some interesting projects around incentives, and there's all sorts of discussions around benefits and credits and that sort of thing. So how do we make that more tangible? A big one is data and data collection systems. So most people that participated in the consultation are saying collection of data is a big barrier to entry for smallholder farmers. The world is about data at the moment. I was at a conference last week where really people just spoke about data. How do we collect data? How do we empower people to use that data to drive their sustainability journey? And then the last one is around climate action and resilience. And I think energy transition, just energy transition. So how does the standard drive that? So those are some of the thoughts over and above the guidance that Sophie has put into the proposal so far. So if I can take my smallholder hat off and just talk to you for a moment as a member of the project steering committee, selection committee, sorry. I've sat on the selection committee for the last couple of years over a number of calls. So I've sort of got a flavor of what it's about. So two things that's quite important that we look at is the first one, alignment with strategy, the Bonsucro strategy. So somehow try and include that, and then obviously a close alignment with the call. So those are two sort of overarching things. You can keep the other slide on so people can read it. I'm not really going to go through it. I think some other maybe tips that I can give is I see that at the moment we've got 55 people on the call. Let's say that a quarter of that's probably 12 to 15 people put in a concept note. Note as a member of the project selection committee, we're talking about 20 hours, 30 hours of work to go through. And my experience is that by the time you get to the 15th or 16th proposal, you battle to remember the first one. So my advice and my tips are, give your project a clear title, which really embodies the project. So the very first thing that we read, there's the title. Gosh, that's interesting. I'll remember that project from there. I think clear processes and activities and clear expected outcomes. So we can clearly track how the project activities will lead to the outcome, which hopefully is linked to the title of the project. I think the third thing is simple language, especially where new or innovative concepts are concerned. So often where people are looking at new things, they have a jargon, they have acronyms, and then they appear in the concept note. It's very difficult to decipher some of them. So clear and simple language. Those three things will help the proposal to be remembered and will give it the spark which creates interest. I think two other really important things for me just before I finish. The first one is I like to see the ability to scale. So I think that's really, really important, both in the impact and in the innovation grant. So that how do we leverage this learning, this knowledge into scale? And I think don't only think local scale, I think regional and international scale. That's quite important. And then the last one is, how does the project drive systemic change? In many of the countries and in the context that we work, there are systemic barriers. So how do we take something that is partly grant funded, partly own funded, and change a system? So how do we create a sort of industry-wide change? So the systemic change is important. So, Sophie, I think that's all from me. Other than to say to the people on the webinar, good luck, and we look forward to seeing some really sparky proposals. I'm going to have to step off the call now, but thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you very much, Mike. Okay, Sarah, if we could go to the next slide. So in terms of the eligibility for your project, adding to what Mike said, we would really encourage you to also include utilization of the existing Bonsucro tools. the farm diary, the calculator, and the climate cane tracker. We also would like to see connections to contribute and/or adapt according to the smallholder standard review process, which is currently underway, as Mike mentioned, and also encourage you to build on existing results and learning from projects that have already been supported by the Bonsucro Impact Fund. And you can see all of those projects on our website. In terms of other eligibility rules, many of you should know that one of the key rules is that the lead applicant must be a Bonsucro member in compliance with all membership requirements and would be working in consortium. The consortium must include at least 3 partners, including the lead. And we would really encourage consortium that include financial institutions. That would be really great to see, and would those proposals would be prioritized. So I would really encourage you to seek out those types of partnerships. We also encourage a consortia that includes both end users and producer members, so that we can touch all parts of the value chain. At full proposal stage, we would ask consortium members to confirm their commitment to the project in writing. The bulk of the project activities should also be taking place in one of the eligible countries, as you can see on the map there. I won't be going through the list, but you can find all of the details in the call for proposal document. Other eligibility rules include that the projects must be co-funded. So we would be looking for a minimum of 50% of the overall project budget should be coming from co-funding. Now we do accept co-funding from all types of co-funding. So that could be in kind, that could be staff, that could be cash, that could be inputs. That could be capital, and that can be provided from a mix of the partners, other donors, and the lead. We will be looking for value for money, and we'll be looking at innovation and catalytic interventions. There's a list also in the call for proposal of the types of interventions that we would not be funding. So those include things like early stage field trials. If projects don't have clarity on the learning objectives, and we wouldn't be supporting projects with a high budget on technical assistance or capital expenditure. Now, all applications will be assessed by the project selection committee against these criteria. And so please do keep them in mind when you are preparing your application. Next slide. So we, as the Bonsucro Impact Fund, we run a 2-stage process. First of all, we invite you to submit concept notes. If you are chosen to go through to the second stage, we would ask you to submit a full proposal. As I mentioned, projects are selected by the project selection committee, and final grant awards are signed off by the Bonsucro board. Once a full proposal has been offered a grant, we would go through a process of making final refinements to the proposal and the budget, and we would ask you to accept the clauses in the grant agreement and to complete our due diligence process. Next slide. In terms of this call for proposals, as I mentioned, the deadline is the 2nd of December. We will be meeting, the project selection committee will be meeting in January, and we expect to inform applicants of the outcome of their application around February, and looking for full proposals in March, and we would look to contract the successful projects in April. So the concept to apply for the Bonsucro Impact Fund call for proposal, you can apply in English, Spanish, or Portuguese. This is done through our online form. If you are involved in submitting your member annual report, you'll be familiar with this system. Only members can use this form, and you would need to have your Bonsucro membership number to hand to be able to do that. There are text boxes with limits of characters and words, so please keep an eye on that, and yeah, make sure you don't run out of space in that. On the next slide, we have a short demonstration video so you can see how to access it. So I will let you watch that.
Hello everyone, this is just a quick recording to show you how to submit an access request to access the Bonsucro Impact Fund concept note form. So the link has been shared on the Bonsucro Impact Fund page on the website. All you have to do is click on that link and you'll be taken through to this access request page. Please note that this form can only be accessed by Bonsucro members. So the first thing that you need to do is choose the language that you want to submit your concept note in. And we have a choice between English, Spanish, and Portuguese. So you need to choose your language, enter your email address into the form, choose your Bonsucro membership number from the list, and then choose your organisation name. Once you've done that, you can just click login, and then you'll be taken through to another page where your access request will be confirmed, at which point you will receive an email into your inbox, which will look like this. To access the next stage of the form, you just click on review request, and then the concept form will open. Please note that if your access request is denied, you will need to contact us to add your new contact details into the system so that you can submit another access request to access the concept note form.
Great. Okay. Just a reminder to please add your questions into the Q&A, and we will deal with them in the next section of the webinar. So this part of the webinar, I am going to talk about some tips on presenting a sound application. So, yeah, some of these tips might sound obvious, but please remember that the project selection committee can only assess and select applications of what is included in your concept note. They cannot use any other information or knowledge. They can only assess on what is included. Please ensure you read the call for proposals thoroughly, including the eligibility requirements, what we will and won't fund, the co-funding requirement and the geographic eligibility, and only members can apply as the lead applicant. And if you don't fulfill any of those eligibility requirements, I'm afraid your application will not be considered by the project selection committee. So it's really imperative that you make sure that you fulfill all of those requirements. Your project should be addressing a problem. Please ensure the problem statement is clear and you explain the local context and how this affects the communities and the producers. Your project should have a clear logic. If you do one thing, this should result in another. So your theory of change should be clearly articulated. Keep in mind the Bonsucro strategy and consider how your project will support its achievement. We also have a really detailed monitoring, evaluation and learning guidance on our website. And please refer to it and think about how the key objectives of your project, what they would be, what change you aim to make, who are the stakeholders, who are your partners and why you have chosen them, and which groups they can influence and work closely with. Think about what the project selection committee would be thinking about when they're looking at your project. Why would this particular project create learning that is valuable to the rest of the Bonsucro network? So, yeah, I hope that's helpful. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask us. You can, you can ask me or your account manager. Now, the project selection committee, they will be assessing the applications according to this assessment criteria. So the first criteria is collaboration convening, so working in new partnerships, bringing stakeholders and actors together. This is a really key part of the Bonsucro Impact Fund and what makes it work. Sound theory of change, methodology. You need to demonstrate a robust logic to achieve change to tackle a relevant problem that is affecting the sector. Participation and involvement of local stakeholders. We want to see an initiative that is rooted in local participation and has local buy-in from stakeholders. Measurability and impact. We want to see that the achievements of the project can be clearly measured and present value for investment. And we want to see a vision of scalability, as Mike mentioned. We want to see a solution that has potential to be replicated or scaled to benefit even more stakeholders into another region, context, or country, and may have applicability elsewhere. So I've prepared some frequently asked questions that have come through my colleagues in the regions. These may answer some of the questions that are coming through on the Q&A, but these are the quite frequent questions that are asked around the call for proposals. So the first question is, can I resubmit the same project idea that I submitted last time or maybe a previous time? Yes, you can. There's absolutely no rules around that. Can I submit more than one project proposal to this call for proposal? Again, yes, there's no rules that prohibit you to do that. You can submit as many as you want. Obviously, that may dilute your ability to you're unlikely to be awarded more than one project, considering we only have 3 grants available. And please think about the resources and the time that it would require for you to develop each proposal. Will the BIF support development of a commercial tool? So this one is not as straightforward to answer. It's unlikely that we would, but it would be great if you would like to talk to us directly if this is something that you would be interested in. Do I need to have all the match funding secured or committed at concept note stage? This is a no. You don't need to have the match funding secured or committed at the first stage, but we would need to have it committed at the second stage, and we would need to see proof of that as well submitted with your full proposal. Do I need to have all my co-applicants identified at concept note stage? Again, you don't. However, it's definitely a positive to have many of them identified, and it will always strengthen your chances of being selected if they you know, if they're very relevant partners, if they're bringing very different things into the consortium, that would be considered positively. Can you help me identify co-applicants? Yes, this is something that we can support you with. As you know, we have more than 300 members, and we have a huge network that even goes outside of membership. So if that is something that you are interested in, you can contact myself, or you can contact your account manager who can support that process. And just to remind you, these are the regional contacts. So depending where you are in the world, where your membership is based, your member is based, you would have a particular designated account manager. So for those that are in Europe and North America, it would be Raphael, and then by the regions we have Mike, Manisha, Ruth, and Livia, who would be your main contacts.